As WWE ramps up for the Day 1 pay-per-view in just 3 weeks, we get a very solid Monday Night Raw, with Kevin Owens taking on Big E inside of Steel Cage. Edge appears as a guest on Miz TV. RK-Bro continued to shine, and Liv Morgan has a career night. Let's get it all started right after this.
Ugh, what a day. I just need some me time for once. Yes! Perfect! I got the new bath bombs today! Peach and clove, here we come! Mim and the Anvil makes the best smelling herbal blends of bath bombs. You can order loose or ground herb, added buttermilk, extra large, even ones with hidden gifts inside. There are over 25 essential oil varieties. After today, my body definitely needs some spiritual nourishment and lots of fizz. Her metaphysical blends are soothing in more ways than one. Visit mimandtheanvil.com today. Make time for yourself. There are over 100 herbal blends of bath bombs. Keep a healthy body and mind. Feed your soul. Visit mimandtheanvil.com today. If you don't make time for yourself, no one else will.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is the one that everybody wants, me. Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore! Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my idol. You're going to acknowledge me.
Well, here we go, everybody. Welcome to the Monday Night Raw episode of the WWE Podcast. We're about to dive into the entire episode of Monday Night Raw, and an episode that I really believe was pretty solid. Pretty solid. I mean, I do have some gripes, as per usual. I mean, would this show be a WWE podcast? Would it be a typical show without some kind of critique? The answer is no. The answer is no. So I do have a few things, but there's no such thing as a perfect episode of Raw. And overall, though, again, I thought it was an enjoyable episode. And I will say this, I got way more invested in the main event of Raw than I ever thought I would. Like, I don't know why. All of a sudden, like, something just switched on me, and we're going to dive into that. And maybe it was, I don't know, maybe I'm PMSing, who knows? I just really, for some reason, was just there for Liv Morgan in a much bigger way than I anticipated, even though we all knew this match was coming and we all sort of saw the outcome, foresaw it. And we knew that Liv Morgan was more than likely not going to win the Raw Women's Championship. But we're going to dive into that a little bit more in a minute. But just one shameless plug, and this is actually a pretty big one, is that yesterday I announced on the What If show, or not the What If show, the Sunday night show, because yesterday we did a retro What If. My fault on that one. I just burned out yesterday, and so not Anthony's fault, my own, and we will reconvene next week for a brand new What If, so my apologies there. But the Sunday night show, I announced that the WWE Podcast ad-free audio would be dropping to 99 cents a month with a 7-day free trial on Apple Podcasts. Well, that's still the case, but we've now also, for a limited time, don't know how long, I feel like I'm running an infomercial, but our yearly offer now is just $10 for the entire year. Now, why is that significant? Well, if you did 99 cents a month, that'd be $12 a year, but we're taking an additional 2 months off of the yearly price. So if you elect for the yearly option on the Apple Podcasts site, the page there on our Apple Podcasts main page, $10 for the entire year ad-free. And that's locked in for a year. So even if prices go up, if I decide to get rid of this promotion, you're locked in. You are locked in for the entire year for just $10. I mean, that's sort of a steal. So get yourself into the Apple Podcasts realm if you're there. Most of our listeners do come from Apple Podcasts, so consider doing this, guys, because I really don't know how long I'm going to run the promotion for 99 cents a month or $9.99 a year. So consider that, but if not, you can also check out Patreon. That's also $1 a month, and everything's ad-free there with much more in the higher tiers, including a merchandise and coming on the show and everything else. So anyway, let's move into the Monday Night Raw episode. I'm going to start right with Liv Morgan and Becky Lynch. I'm not going to wait. This match, I have to say, they did a really good job of promoting throughout the show. It felt like a big deal, and it almost felt as if there was a chance that Liv Morgan could win. Why? Because it was the main event of Raw. It was the main event of Raw where if a title like that is going to change hands, that's where it would happen. Now, in the first place, I wouldn't put championship matches on Raw on a regular basis. That's beside the point. But if they were going to do it in this time and day where they just have no shame of putting championship matches on Raw on a weekly basis, this would have been the spot to do it. And Becky Lynch really being undefeated since WrestleMania 35, albeit a 1.5 gap, this would have felt like a huge moment in Memphis, Tennessee. And boy, they weren't shy about saying Memphis, Tennessee, were they? Other than The Miz, of course, having to make fun of the Southern accent, because we all know Vince McMahon hates the Southern accent. So there's always somebody, per Vince McMahon's instructions, that has to rag on the town that they're in, if they're a deep Southern town of, we're in Memphis, Tennessee, right? You always have to have somebody, because Vince truly doesn't like the Southern accent. That's a real thing. So okay, we'll get to the Miz and Edge later, because that's also something significant that happened on Raw. But this matchup felt like a big deal, and like I said, it felt like there was a chance that they could change title holders. Not only because it was the placement of the match in the main event of Raw, but they reminded us about a match from 17 years ago? Oh my God, 2004 was 17 years ago. Where the hell is time gone? 17 years ago between Trish Stratus and Lita, where Lita ended up grabbing the women's championship that night, becoming women's champion. And they showed that spot where Lita almost broke her neck, or maybe she actually did. I'd have to. I remember going back and watching that, going, "Oh my God!" I mean, that was scary, and it was really even more significant then, because you're in the heart of the Ruthless Aggression era, on the heels of the Rock and Austin era. Your Brock Lesnar was prominent then. And actually, Brock Lesnar was gone by then, actually, because he had left in early 2004. But it was the John Cena era. And Undertaker was of course, back as the dead man. That's the era we're talking about. And yet the women main evented Raw that night, in an era also where the women were vastly sexualized. Not to the extent that they were in the Attitude Era, but still not much better. So for them in 2004 to main event Raw, was amazing. I mean, I actually remember that Raw live. Many of you probably do as well. And to see that happen, you kind of felt at the time, and no, this is no disrespect to Trish and Lita, but it felt like, oh man, we're getting that for the main event, because you're so used to Austin in the main event, Rock in the main event, Triple H in the main event, Undertaker. While Austin and Rock were retired by that point, they were still kind of somewhat in wrestling. Well, Austin was officially retired, but The Rock was kind of poking his head in and out, so to speak. And so you kind of felt like, oh, really? So, and I don't mean that to be disrespectful, but when you raise the bar that high, it's hard to not expect that on a regular basis when it's continuously happening. Anyway, I'm not here to analyze Trish and Lita. I'm just saying in that era, it actually was more significant because it was unheard of that women main evented Monday Night Raw. But they killed it that night. I remember that. And they were way at, quote unquote, ahead of their time. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, because the women shouldn't have been sexualized as they were. But they were ahead of their time in what pro wrestling did for them at that time. And now, of course, we fast forward 17 years, and the women have made a lot of progress, and really in no large part due to the fans, because the fans are the ones who really created this movement. You do wonder, if WWE didn't get the push from the fans, would they still be kind of marginalizing the women? Would they still be kind of objectifying them? Or in the PG era, maybe they wouldn't have objectified them sexually, but perhaps they would have just kind of made them more of a sideshow, not as relevant as they are now. It's possible, it is possible. But this is all, it's really starting from the fans, from the ground up, like, hey, give Divas a chance, which turned into the Women's Evolution pay-per-view. And Stephanie tried to be the head of that. of course, as the chief brand officer. There's no better PR to have than some kind of organic women's movement that she seemingly took credit for and was the face of, yet she had really almost nothing to do with it. And anyway, that's a whole nother topic. See how quickly I get off on random tangents, but it is relevant to the main event we got here with Liv and Becky Lynch, because what they did here, the placement was great to make you believe. The reminder about 17 years ago with Trish and Lita that I just talked about was a great reminder, and one I would have never remembered. The cherry on top for me wasn't the interview that Liv had before the match, although it was solid, it was fine. And the same thing for Becky Lynch. It didn't really do much other than just kind of keep things at where they were. I mean, it was just kind of hold steady. The cherry on top for me that I never expected them to do was create the video package that they did and air it directly before the match for Liv Morgan. That, to me, really sold it. Like, they were already halfway there for me, maybe 75% of the way there. Where I'm like, all right, I kind of care about this. They've got me invested. This, like, pushed me into the deep end of investment. And in a place that I never expected to be, getting actually, like, emotional about rooting for this woman. Because all of a sudden, within, a couple of minutes, you knew more about Liv Morgan than you had in the last 6 years as part of the Riot Squad, kind of a pretty face in a group that was going nowhere, and a talent that you knew had something but was never pushed to the forefront, and it was frustrating for a lot of fans. So it was amazing. It's because you got a backstory. You got a backstory on this woman that you had really no other backstory to before this time. You may have heard things here and there, but to see her mother, to see how much of a fan she was, they gave clips of the era that she grew up in, the Attitude Era. They showed Austin, they showed Rock and Taker and Triple H. And maybe it's also, given that I'm a millennial and I grew up during that time too, I connected even more on that level. But this allows you to just step into her shoes, see the life she's lived, no pun intended, and from her family perspective, see what her mom has talked about, growing up in a single mom home where she didn't have a dad to lean on. That all really just made you feel sympathetic towards her, made you root for her even more, really just spoke to her character. And again, this is all from a video package. I don't think any of it was fabricated. I really don't. I believe it was all true. But again, it's amazing. It's amazing what just a few minutes of a video package can do that filled in a hole that wasn't filled for 6 years with Liv Morgan. And it was great. I mean, I really, really can't say enough about it, because I will say it until I'm blue in the face. If you do not have emotional investment in a storyline, you have nothing. You have nothing, because you have fans that aren't engaged. You have fans tuning out, maybe watching something else, skipping through that portion of Raw, not reacting if they're in the arena, not buying the merchandise. So this, to me, was emotional investment. And the match itself, while there were some blunders here and there, like this wasn't a classic of Charlotte Becky or a classic Becky and Bianca or whatever. This was, I think, still Bianca's Liv Morgan's best match to date. Yes, we have a great competitor on the other side of the ring that is due as much credit as Liv Morgan is in Becky Lynch, but Liv held her own, and there were some miscommunications. Nothing egregious that you would go, "Oh my God, this is embarrassing." But yeah, there was some kind of a little bit of sloppy spots, but it wasn't enough to me to damper the entire match. I think the meaning of it, the execution of it was still meaningful, and it still hit the target that it wanted to hit, which was get the fans behind Liv. Let's see what we got. And WWE did their part here, because I said, and I stand by it, this was a litmus test for fans and for WWE, to fans, to see how much they truly support or don't Liv Morgan. And WWE did their part. They put her in the main event. They gave her an opportunity. They made her look competitive as hell, almost winning the championship on multiple spots in that match. They gave you a video package to give you a backstory. The emotion on Liv's face was real coming out to the ring. You could see it on her face. Corey Graves even picked up on that too, that he said that the butterflies in her stomach are the size of pterodactyls. You know, as weird of an analogy as that is. I don't know if he's watching the new Jurassic Park trailer or something that came to his mind. But that all, just to me, it created Liv Morgan in a single night. And yes, she didn't win the championship, but that's not the point. Now you have a character that you know a hell of a lot more about, that showed true emotion, that can hang in the main event, and got screwed out of the championship by this this tyrannical Becky Lynch. And now you have some ground to stand on. Fans have something to cheer for. And I hope that the fans continue to support her, because if this fails from here on out, from the Liv Morgan perspective, if the Liv Morgan experiment fails, it at this point won't be because of WWE. It would be because fans didn't grasp on and they let this storyline die. Now, I know what some of you are saying. Well, wait a minute. We haven't seen the whole thing play out. What if they do something really stupid next week? And you know what? That's absolutely possible. WWE could do something just ridiculous next week. You know, do another pie to the face, have her be in a gravy bowl match or something. They wouldn't do that, but something really dumb. They could. I don't think they will. Given that they put a lot of time into this main event and they did their part, now it's time for the fans to pull their weight and make this come full circle. I believe that they won't screw this up in terms of like egregiously, where, yeah, okay, they had a lot of good things they did this week, and they do something really, really dumb the next few weeks and kill the character. It's very possible, but I'm going to go on the premise that they don't, and they do at least a satisfactory job. It is now the fans' turn. So I'm repeating myself, but you guys get the drift. Now, again, the ending of the match was great. I think the ending of the match was perfect, because now you've not only set up Liv Morgan in a great position. Like, I mean, they did an excellent job, again, from top to bottom in their goal here. But they've done something else to Becky Lynch, where now I think she's truly coming into a heel character, where this is something that they can really sink their teeth into, fans that is, of wanting to see Becky Lynch get dethroned. Where before and up to that point, it was kind of like, oh, Becky, stop your kidding around. You know, stop. Oh, yeah. Oh, stop being so mean. We still love you. And there was some boos, but then it'd go back to cheers. And her music is so fun to listen to. The fans still cheer for her when she comes out. They need to do something about that music if they truly want to get her on a heel wavelength here. Music always lags behind a heel turn. I think there's always, for whatever reason, there's just the logistics of getting a new heel song lags many weeks behind the actual turn. So hopefully Becky Lynch gets some new music to kind of quiet the crowd from her Pavlovian response that she gets with her current music. But that aside, this, I think, will be the first event that WWE has with Becky that the fans can go, all right, yeah, screw this girl, right? Screw this woman. We want Liv now. We want Liv. And the first Liv chants that I can remember, they need to start, I think, chanting Morgan, because Liv is a one-syllable word. One-syllable words aren't great to be chanted. They're not very chantable. So maybe it's let's go Liv. I think that's what they did. Or they did a lot of like Liv and let's go Liv, but maybe Morgan, maybe. I don't know. No, but I'm sure fans will come up with something. But they also, again, established Becky now solidly in that heel camp with what she did to Liv, and doing what she did to Bianca, and holding the rope. So this has now become Becky Lynch's signature. So it's Becky Lynch now has something that the fans need to look out for, that somebody will eventually catch her, and when she tries it again in a big spot, I think she'll get caught and it won't work. But we had like 3 roll-ups for the night, and this was one of them. So, but again, guys, I know I spent now 20 minutes talking about this, but that's how strongly I felt about this. And I don't know what hit me about it. Maybe some of you were still tuned out, didn't do for much for you, but this was really strong for me. This really did it. And again, it's all about the follow-up. If you don't have good follow-up, then, all the work you've done could be for nothing. So the follow-up needs to be strong. I don't know what the plans are moving forward for Liv. Again, I think that the WWE is going to test the waters to see how far they want to take this. And if ultimately the goal would be to turn or put Liv as women's champion, or if they just want to have her on a quick, nice little run, the feel-good story, but ultimately she's a pass-through to a bigger opponent. They're testing us, guys. WWE did their part. Now it's time for us to do ours. All right, let's move into the next segment here. And what do I want to talk about? What the heck do I want to talk about? The steel cage match that opened Monday Night Raw. And good match. I'm glad that Raw started off with something beyond just a promo that's very typical of Raw that leads to a main event. So this was nice. The steel cage match was, as expected, good. 2 really good performers in the ring. Kevin Owens loses clean to Big E. And, of course, I don't even know if I want to get into the whole fact that walking out the door is an actual method of victory. I'll just say this once, and then I won't say it again the rest of the show. How you have methods of victory that go against the very purpose of the steel cage is inflammatorily aggravating. Maybe that's a kind of a repetitive statement, but it doesn't make sense that a steel cage, which is meant to keep people out and keep people in, the very way to win that match is to escape the very structure that was meant to keep you in, and that's how you win. How is that even just think about that. Think about that. The worst part of it, I would even, if somebody forced me to choose this method, I would at least allow for escaping over the top, but no door. The door is ridiculous. Walking through a door can be done by a toddler, by a geriatric senior citizen. It can be done by like nearly every human being on earth with ease. And especially if you have somebody open the door for you, but these super athletes can't just walk through the door quickly and win. Come on. Please, at least in the bare minimum, eliminate the walking through the door methodology. I know that they like to have their outs and ways to win a match. This one is cartoonishly bad. Oh, okay. See, I'm done. I said it once. Okay. But after the match, Bobby Lashley, and I didn't see this coming, but like an RKO, he attacked Kevin Owens, attacked Big E, and I think he, as they loved, and Byron, God, he loves to say this, he made a statement about putting himself into the championship picture, and now I believe this is a fatal 4-way. This is no longer a triple threat. As we had somewhat assumed earlier, this is now a fatal 4-way. The only difference was a few weeks ago, we talked about the possibility of Finn Balor being in this. Looks like it's going to be Bobby Lashley in this. And it just further allows WWE to protect Big E when he loses the championship, given that he's essentially got a 25% chance of winning that match. Now there's 4 competitors. So they're further protecting Big E here upon a loss where Seth Rollins should capture the championship. I mean, Bobby Lashley, no way. There's just no way they're going to make him champion at this point. He had a solid, how many months he was champion? I don't know exactly. He had a significant run. And Big E has had I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. He's had a forgettable run. It hasn't been embarrassing. I really don't think Big E's been embarrassing. He has not been embarrassing as champion, and I really will not. I will not say that. He's been frustrating as champion. He's been underwhelming and uninspiring as champion, but embarrassing? No. That's the damn truth. But it's time to put it on the visionary, the man that has come full circle and find out who he is as a character. That is Seth Rollins. This man is ready for the spotlight. The man is ready to carry the WWE right now. And I think he'd be excellent as champion. And it would start the new year off perfectly, I think. So, again, I would absolutely expect to see Bobby Lashley inserted here as the fourth competitor in a fatal 4-way. So get ready for that, everybody. I'm cool with it, though. Whatever. I know they overdo multi-person matches, but at this point, we're all numb to them. So, all right. Now, let's get into another topic here. And let's move to something that actually wasn't on the Hulu version of Raw. So that tells you all you need to know about the significance and outcome and purpose of this match. But Ripley versus Ripley and Nikki versus Zelena and Carmella. And I saw a few highlights of this. This is what Bleacher Report says. So just so I don't miss anything. Queen Zelena gave a promo on her way to the ring to battle one half of the team she and Carmella beat for the Women's Tag Team Championships. They had a competitive start that led to her taking control and hitting a bulldog. Zelena countered a suplex and stacked her up in the corner. The ref saw the Queen's foot on the ropes and stopped the count. A moment later, Zelena hit Code Red for the pin and the win as Rhea Ripley looked on in disappointment. So it looks like perhaps we could finally be seeing Rhea Ripley go back on her own, and maybe Nikki ASH dies a very quick death. I mean, I don't care if Nikki's on the roster. It's fine. Nikki's a commodity. She's important to the women's roster, and I think she has got something there, but not this ridiculous, completely transparent attempt at a childhood fan connection. It is not working. I've heard her getting actually boos at house shows, like completely booed out of the building, which is awesome. But Zelena hitting Code Red, boy, I love that finish, by the way. And her getting the victory here is fine, and Rhea Ripley not taking the pinfall is the right move. So, okay, let's see. We then turn our attention to the RK-Bronament? Boy, they were really stretching on that one, weren't they? Like tournament and bro, they were fitting or trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. That's what that felt like. I mean, they were stretching on that kind of phraseology, but the whole point of this was to have the 4 tag teams, really the only 4 tag teams in existence on Raw, have a quote-unquote tournament in which everybody essentially made it to the semifinals. I mean, that's what it was. Everybody by default were in the semifinals of this tournament, and we were really looking to just figure out the finals of the tournament. And we had the first up, the Street Profits versus AJ and Omos, I think. And good match. I also like Montez Ford kind of growing out his facial hair. Gives him a bit more of a mature look instead of kind of like the guy looks very young, and adding a little bit of facial hair, I think, adds to his character. And I like these guys much more Montez Ford than Angelo Dawkins for sure. I mean, Montez Ford is easily the star of that group. It's not even a question. Everybody knows it. And the other kind of caveat in this were Orton and Riddle backstage talking about blazers, where Riddle was dressed in just an old school blazer. I think Vince or somebody in creative was watching old, 1950s or 60s, probably 60s rather, interviewers, whether they are in wrestling or in some other kind of sport, and they got this idea, but it fit Riddle kind of pretty well, and Randy eventually caved into doing it, and Riddle sat ringside with Randy. Randy didn't say much. Riddle was, of course, running his mouth on commentary, which actually was kind of fun to listen to. Riddle is actually not super annoying on commentary. And we got a victory on the side of Street Profits moving into the finals of this quote-unquote tournament. And Styles really and Omos were the story here. And Riddle coming in to talk about it was also part of it. But the look on Omos's face after AJ Styles lost the match was very telling, I think. No question about it. And the match, I think, was really good, by the way. Omos seems to continue to progress in body language. In-ring is always going to be limited. He's eventually going to hit a cap of what he can do, and I think he might have already reached it. His size is just so monstrous that he's going to be limited just by physics. And the whole story here, that was the big story coming out of this, of course, was the beginning of the end. Apparently, of course, this is all just conjecture, but it looks like the end of AJ and Omos. That looks to be the beginning of the end here, of which many of us have been looking forward to. Really, both men, I think, could benefit from this. Yes, the tag team division will suffer with another, really like 25% of their tag teams now gone if AJ and Omos leave and they do their own thing. But the benefit is you get an instant main eventer in AJ Styles. Maybe, as we've all hoped for, an AJ Styles, another big run. You have the up-and-coming Omos that is a gravitational pull on your screen. You get to see what they've been trying to do with him, or at least see what the plan may be for him. I think he's going to have a big showing in the Royal Rumble. I think a big showing in the Royal Rumble. Perhaps they're going to have an AJ versus Omos match where AJ's the babyface, maybe. And AJ then challenges a Seth Rollins down the line for the championship. I mean, I'm just kind of doing the logical steps here. AJ as a babyface is fun. AJ can do both. I really don't prefer one or the other for AJ. He is great at both. And I don't say that about everybody. That's for sure. AJ is equally talented on both ends, I believe. And him facing Omos would be a fun kind of David Goliath matchup. And, I don't think that AJ would come out of that with a clean victory. If he wins that program, assumingly they break up and assuming they have a match, it's going to be by hook or crook, or maybe just some kind of lady luck on his side, because they have big plans for Omos. And I want to see Omos in the Royal Rumble and seeing him face off against maybe Brock Lesnar, right? Seeing him face off, I don't know, against Edge or something like that. Like seeing what Omos does with other stars in that ring. And that, to me, that's the end game here. I don't think Omos would win the Rumble, but he's going to make a big splash in it. So I'm looking forward to this. This is hopefully the beginning of the end of that team. Not that it's been a bad team, but there's better and bigger and better benefits to breaking them up than keeping them together. All right, let's continue on here. And Damien Priest versus Robert Rood for the United States Championship. Amazingly, this was also not on Hulu. Amazing, right? A championship match was not on Hulu. So this, I actually did not see. This is what Bleacher Report said, and I'll just read it verbatim. This was a fun, competitive match between two guys who are known for their athleticism and endurance. They could have gone another 10 minutes and kept the crowd invested. Priest's potential heel turn seems to have been canceled, as he is back to playing the good guy most of the time, especially in this bout. There was a couple of weeks where his rage seemed like it was leading to a turn, but it never happened, at least not yet. These U.S. Open title matches are fun because they give Priest a chance to work with talents without having to engage in a long feud with each one. So this obviously led to Damien Priest retaining the championship. I mean, there was exactly a 0% chance of Robert Roode winning it. But from everything I'm reading here, it looks like this was a good match. Of course, oh, wait a minute. Here we go. Roode, here's the final segment of the match, the final few moments. And it said, this is, again, Bleacher Report, Roode fought out of the reckoning and almost won with a roll-up before Priest caught him with this finish for the win. Okay, I saw roll-up, and I thought, oh boy, they did a roll-up. They didn't. Okay, good. So Priest cleanly beat Roode, as he should. He's clearly in the, in terms of the food chain, much higher up than Robert Roode is. So, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, Doudrop versus Bianca Belair. This also, boy, was not on Miz TV or on Hulu. Miz TV's next, if you didn't catch that. So this is, if you didn't catch it either, and maybe you watch Hulu. As Bianca Belair made her way to the ring, Doudrop attacked her from behind to get an unfair advantage. When we returned to commercial, the bell rang, and Doudrop tried to maintain the advantage, but Belair was able to get the upper hand and corner her for some kicks to the stomach. She taunted Doudrop and backflipped her over in the corner. The former NXT UK standout dodged a dropkick and hit a senton for a quick 2 count. The EST tried unsuccessfully to fight back before Doudrop put her down again for another near fall. They took the fight out of the ring where Doudrop hit a big splash on the floor to send, of course, into a commercial break, because that's the only time they can go to a commercial break is when somebody gets thrown to the outside and the camera zooms in on that person groaning in pain, and the announcers say, "Can so-and-so get back in the matchup?" as Raw rolls on. Can they find something else another way? I have this belief that they would never go to commercial break if no one got sent to the outside of the ring. I really have that. I believe that. Like, how would they go to commercial break? Okay. So let's see. Where am I going? We returned from the commercial break, and we saw Belair starting to rally as the crowd got behind her. She hit a nice crossbody for a close 2 count. Doudrop hit a Vader-style splash in the corner for another near fall. Belair was able to power Doudrop up, but couldn't hit the KOD before she rolled out of the ring. Doudrop decided to take a walk before the ref counted her out. Good stuff. I really like the way that this match was structured. I do. Without even seeing it, I do really believe that was a great way, because the payoff is being able to see Bianca Belair hit the KOD on this larger woman. I mean, that's it. You know, like, she is a much larger woman than everybody else, which again is not a bad thing. It just is what it is. And it's going to help put Bianca Belair over further when somebody sees it. We all watch her put the KOD on Doudrop. I said right at the beginning, that's going to be the payoff, and she'll eventually hit it. But good stuff, good heat for Doudrop by just leaving and getting counted out. Okay, Miz TV. This was on Hulu. I did see this. So this is wasn't as fun as last week. They didn't have it as much time in the ring together to scald each other. So it was okay. Miz points out his $9,000 shoes. Of course, we have to hear about the real world again. And it's amazing. You know, the Miz has been in WWE for 15 years. And I still can't get the stink of him as a reality TV star out of my brain. It's amazing. And at this point, if 15 years in, it hasn't happened, I don't think it's going to happen at all. And it doesn't help that they continue to also bring up the fact that he's part of Tough Enough. He was part of the real world. And he did bring up, the fact that at the beginning of his career, that's when he needed Edge. And, you could have helped me back then. Instead, everybody told me to leave. And they told me, they kicked me out of the locker room. That's when I needed you. And Edge told Miz to hang in there. And, if I was Edge, I would have said, hey, bro, this is how it works backstage. You got to earn your respect. You don't just get handed your respect. So, I mean, how many times have we heard that? But that's what I would have said. And Edge said, yeah, I had to deal with that 6 years earlier. I mean, it's true. So I guess he kind of implied it there. And the Miz, he talked about his $9,000 shoes and how he came from the real world, and he was already more famous than 90% of the people in the locker room. Miz, yeah, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure no. I mean, maybe it's because I didn't watch the real world like ever. I was never a real world fan ever. But in 2006, like, you still had some pretty heavy hitters in 2006. So I don't know if 90%, that sounds like a high percentage. But I mean, I'm not going to hold him to it. This was fine. Eventually we did get to, Miz calling out Edge for not being the ultimate opportunist, not being the rated R superstar, and said that the old Edge would have speared him, and that's not who he is anymore. And Edge said, don't mistaken my kindness for weakness. And of course he challenged Miz to a fight, and Miz said no. But we all know this is going to happen at day one. I mean, that's when this is going to happen. It's already been confirmed. So there's a match for your day one card as it continues to grow. And again, this is fine. I like kind of reading Bleacher Report. I feel like they're one of the more credible sources too. This was their take on it. They gave this a B+ as a segment. They said the Miz has had an up and down career, but when he wants to, he can deliver one hell of a promo. His interaction with Edge in this segment showed why he's been so successful in WWE. Edge is the grizzled veteran, and Miz is the bitter former main event player, made for a great combo. Both men are trying to get back something they once had, but are going about it in different ways. Edge and The Miz are both great at what they do. This was a good segment that helps sell their feud and put the match on the books. Yeah, I mean, Am I the only one that doesn't look at Miz as a main event star? I know there are some people that listen to this show that feel like the Miz is really good. And you know what? This is infinitely more tolerable than when he is with Morrison playing, the high school sophomore, playing ridiculous pranks. It's infinitely more tolerable. And this version of the Miz I can sign up for. It's fine. But I still don't look at the Miz as an actual credible main event. Ever. I never have. Even when he was in the main event of WrestleMania against John Cena, it wasn't really about the Miz. It was really just getting to The Rock versus the Miz. That's all that was for. The Miz was just a prop. He was a placeholder. That's all he was. And he can claim forever that he was a main event in one of the main events of WrestleMania. And that's very much true. But when you dive into it and actually just for 2 seconds take a look at it, you're like, oh, yeah, he can claim that, but this had nothing to do with the Miz. This was all about The Rock and John Cena. So to me, I have never viewed the Miz as an actual main event guy, nor a top guy. He's good on the microphone, no doubt. Yeah, of course. Of course he is. But he just, I don't know. He'll always be that reality star guy that came in to me. Runs his mouth. He doesn't have the, I guess the aggressiveness or I don't know what it is. The Miz just to me is just he's a heel that is fun to watch get beat up, but he's nothing more. He's not that true top heel that you hate. So I just made a whole bunch of people mad. That's cool. All right. We continue on with our very deep tournament here in the Mysterios versus Alpha Academy. And this was a weird match. And weird in the sense that Otis was not even a part of it. He was there. He was on the ring apron, but never got tagged in once. So are they still protecting Otis? I mean, I guess, because we got a roll up here as Dominic rolled up Chad Gable. And it was just weird. I don't know. I want to see what they do with Otis. I was worried they were going back to the I'm big man, I eat everything kind of ridiculous type of guy. And, I don't know. I do want to see what they do with Otis. I got to say. They seemed like they were onto something with him. They stopped, and hopefully they're back to doing something with it, even if the Mysterios are the ones that actually got the victory. So next week in the finals, it's going to be the Street Profits versus the Mysterios. The winner gets RK-Bro, presumably at day one for the Raw Tag Team Championship. However, the other part of this was that we had the interviewer Riddle, the commentator, the 1960s commentator, come in and ask about what was going on here and how they lost, and Otis just laid him out with I don't know if it was the world's strongest slam, I guess. And by the way, speaking of kind of ripping off finishers and things that have happened in the past, is there a reason why Big E is blatantly just taking Booker T's sucka and dig that? And is there something I missed that happened on Twitter, or are these guys just really good friends? Or I don't know. Big E's really been incorporating a lot of Booker T into his promos. Maybe I missed something. I don't hate it. It's certainly better than his other normal gibberish that he spews out of his mouth from the New Day. But I don't know. Maybe I missed something. All right. Finn Balor versus T-Bar happened. I was really concerned about this match from the perspective that they were going to rock bottom, like completely bottom out Finn Balor, where he was suddenly losing to T-Bar. I mean, I actually thought that was going to happen. I would have come out here and lost it, but he beat T-Bar. And as I think Corey Graves said, or Byron, I can't remember, somebody said this gets him back on track. And I thought the same exact thing. Those are the exact thoughts going through my mind. And then we get an attack from Austin Theory. And I'm fine with Austin Theory doing this. Austin Theory and Finn Balor is going to be a fun matchup in terms of, especially in the ring. My God, it's going to be just magic to watch these two from an athletic perspective. And the whole selfie thing, I actually don't mind the selfie thing. It's heat generating. It's culturally relevant, but it's heat inducing, no doubt. But the bigger part of this is, as fun as that match is going to be, and I think it is, what is Vince doing? Does he even know? Does Vince know he's on TV? Like, can somebody maybe wake Vince up and I don't know, like what is this with Austin Theory? Has he just suddenly taken a liking to Austin Theory where he does this from, a backstage perspective, not on camera, where he selects people suddenly he has an obsession with for like 3, 4, 5 weeks, and then they go away and, suddenly they get deep pushed and you never see him again. Is that what this is? Except we're actually seeing it on camera, where suddenly there's something Austin Theory has that Vince feels is worth bringing to the forefront. I don't know what this is. And furthermore, why does everyone, and I'm talking everyone in management that has a camera on them, have to always be on their phones before someone interrupts them? Now, I know that we're all obsessed on our phones all the time. I mean, hours and hours a day. I mean, I'm not even going to tell you how many hours my phone is telling me I'm on it a day. It's scary. But from a TV perspective, I don't want to watch TV to see somebody else on their phone. I know it's only for a few seconds, but does that always have to be the transition? Does that always have to be the transition from somebody sitting there doing nothing to suddenly someone perfectly interrupting them exactly after the last match ended so that there's a continuation of the program? I don't know. It happened with Kurt Angle as GM. It happens with the current officials of Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville. They're always on their phones before someone interrupts. I don't know. And now Vince is like the ringleader. He's always on his phone. I don't know. I know we see it all the time in real life. All of us do. I mean, everybody's just completely mindlessly in their screens. I understand that. I don't know, but it's just small thing. But Vince has suddenly taken a liking to Austin Theory, telling him to expect the unexpected, pal. Expect the unexpected. Do something I don't expect. You're in a match tonight. You're not in a match tonight. What is this? And furthermore, why is Austin Theory taking this? What happened to being able to stand up to Vince? This happened with the Authority, with like Stephanie, or whenever Steph actually comes back. Not necessarily the Authority era, but when Stephanie comes back, no one ever stands up to her. Everyone just bows at the altar of Stephanie. No one challenges that level of authority anymore. That's what made it fun. Everybody seems to cower when Stephanie comes back. And same with Vince. Like, whatever happened to the rebellious anything can happen attitude? I was hoping Austin Theory, in response to what Vince said of do something I don't expect, would slap him back in return. To me, that would have been awesome, but clearly the point here is to turn him heel. That would have, I think, turned him a babyface, standing up to the boss and slapping him in the face, kind of tit for tat. But perhaps at this stage in Vince's life, that may end up, shattering his jaw. I don't know. Seeing everybody cower at the presence of the McMahons whenever they come back is it's a little much for me, coming from the era of what made you great and what made it great was the McMahons always got their, usually in the end, got what's coming to them, and seeing them get beat up is always fun. But Vince slapping people around, Sonya Deville last week slapping Naomi, and Naomi can't retaliate, which again doesn't make sense. It's weird. I don't know. It feels like the talent are subordinate to management, and in an environment that we're told that everything should feel that anything can happen at any time, and it's chaos. Boy, it sure doesn't feel like that at all when Vince McMahon is around, does it? Everybody just, again, bends the knee to the almighty Vince McMahon on camera. Again, I know backstage he's the man. I get it. We all know that. But on camera, why do we? I don't know. I'm not saying everybody has to be the rebellious Stone Cold and beat him up, but to get slapped and then just sit there and say, oh, I get it now. Just expect the unexpected. I don't know. Like, I don't know what the hell Vince is. What is the payoff for this? I mean, are we going to go back to the egg? Are we still on this story? Is this leading to maybe Stone Cold coming out of retirement? It better be. I mean, at this point, it better be leading to somehow a Rock Austin main event at WrestleMania. It's bizarre that Vince is involved in something so low level, right, like this. And I don't mean to disrespect Austin Theory, but Vince McMahon, when he comes back, it should be for a big reason. And it feels kind of like, and you know what? I'm going to say it. It feels beneath Vince to come back, or at least from his character's perspective. It feels below Vince to come back for something like this. And especially if there's no payoff that's worth doing all this for? So anyway, guys, I think this was a very good episode of Raw. Yes, I had my rants, and I'm just going to check my notes because I know I took some notes throughout the show. This isn't even about the structure of the show. It's more the comment that Corey Graves made about Finn Balor versus T-Bar. This is what Corey Graves said after Finn won. Against all odds, Finn Balor pulls out the victory. Corey, what planet are you on? On what planet are the odds against Finn Balor to beat T-Bar? Are you watching the same match that I am? Have you done any research on Finn? Do you recall anything about Finn Balor and what T-Bar's accomplished? How is it against all odds? Is it supposed to make the victory feel that much more exciting? Is that the verbiage goal that, of why you use that language? I laughed at that. I'm like, what are you talking about, Corey? This is a shoo-in. This is like this is a scrimmage for Finn. Like, what are you talking about, Corey? That was just ridiculous. That was ridiculous. Anyway, yeah, that's the only other thing. I mentioned everything else that I wanted to mention in my notes here. But again, guys, if you want to go ad-free and you want to do it for a year and you get 2 months free and get 7 days free at the beginning, right now is the time. It's $9.99 for the entire year on Apple Podcasts. You can also do 99 cents a month. That's still an option. Or you can go on Patreon, where you get a bunch of other benefits as well, Discord servers, shout-outs, and merch. So everybody, thanks so much for listening. Of course, you can check us out everywhere podcasts are available if you are on the go. And I'll be back tomorrow night with the mailbag. Guys, consider sending your stuff in. Right now, the mailbag is pretty light in terms of the email submissions and the voicemails. Now, I say that, and then tomorrow, I'm sure I'll be overloaded. I say that every time, and it's like my famous last words, and it ends up being a 2-hour show. Right now, as it stands, we're a little bit light on emails and voicemails, but you can, if you're interested, certainly contribute. First-time listeners, long-time listeners, and weekly contributors, please feel free. You can email us at realwwepodcast@gmail.com. You can tweet at us at wrestling_audio or on even TikTok. Guys, I'm on TikTok. We're growing quick. We're getting near 2,000 followers with only being on there a couple of weeks. It's at the WWE Podcast on TikTok or on Instagram at WWE_podcast. So I'd really welcome, of course, anybody new and existing to do that. So the show is all for you guys. The mailbag is 100% for the listeners and about the listeners and giving my response to whatever they have on their mind. So everybody, thanks so much for listening to the Raw review. Take care. And as always, I'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.